Rita Giganti, the daughter of Vincent the Chin Giganti, who was the boss of the Genovese family. We had a wonderful conversation about our upbringing and our fathers. So if you want to hear more, please go to reformgangsters.com.
Hey everybody, we're looking for some sponsors. If you're a business owner and you want to support the cause, please contact me at reformgangsters@gmail.com.
And then we had a meter of fish. Only did the prep work. He was doing a year in 10th, and he had this wonderful system for doing the garlic. He used a razor. He used to slice it so thin that it used to liquefy in the pan with just a little oil. It's a very good system. Vinny was in charge of the tomato sauce. I felt he used too many onions.
So
it was still a very good
I'm
sauce.
watching the scene. So I was in prison and my father was also in prison. So this scene sort of like ties us together because my father actually used to cook in prison, in the federal prison he was in for his guys. And that's how he used to cut the garlic with a razor. And he even used to do that in my house at home. He used to cut the garlic with a razor from being in prison. He used to, and we also cut the garlic and the sauce so when I was in Art to Kill, how you got all that, when I was in Art to Kill correctional facility in 1979, we had a couple of the correctional officers on the take. And we had this correction officer named Stanley who worked in the package room on the take. So when we had visits, they would bring us packages and they would bring us contraband food that you weren't allowed to have. And he would let it in because we were paying him. We were paying him money. We were paying him money every month to let our stuff in. And it's funny because there's a scene here as you go further on. So here's the lobster scene. So when I watch these scenes, it brings back, kicks up memories in me. And so when I was in Art to Kill in 1979, we had the CO on the take that was worked in the visiting room. Like I said, his name was Stanley, right? So we had a kid there with his name Ganji. His brother, his family owned a fish stand at the fish market. And his uncle was a captain in the Genovese family. And the Genovese family ran the Fulton Fish Market back in the day until Giuliani cleared it all out. So we used to get all our contraband food through the package room. So this one day, his brother came up with crabs, with live crabs in bags. And Stanley, we didn't tell Stanley, the CO, about the crabs. We just figured he would let them in. So what happened was he was in the package room and he blindly opened up one of the bags and stuck his hand in it, and one of the crabs bit him. And he screamed and he knocked the bag off the shelf, and the crabs were running all over the visiting room. Like they can't, and the little kids in the visiting room were screaming, "Mommy, there was crabs crawling on the floor in the visiting room." Evidently, he couldn't let the crabs in that day because everybody saw it and the other COs saw it, so we couldn't get the crabs that day. But that's where this scene originated from. So anybody that was in prison with like with us, not every crew did that. Like mostly mob, this was a mob thing. Would cook in our dorm, whatever, we would cook like for the head Latin King guy. We would give him a dish. We would give like out dishes to people just, because they were good guys and, we wanted, and we were all sort of in the same boat. But all these ethnic groups didn't eat like that, except if they had money, like the drug guys, like the Dominicans and everything, they would cook big Dominican meals. They would get, they also had connections. They would make rice and beans and pork and, they would make that ethnic dishes, and all these ethnic groups would make all the ethnic dishes. But so that's a true scene. That's a real scene. And I lived that scene. And even when I was in Attica in the 90s, years later in 98, the guy that had the commissary, the commissaries are run by private people. Like you would rent the commissary from New York State, and it would be like your store, but it would be inside of a prison. Because the whole population shops in the commissary. So the guy in the commissary in Attica, he was an Italian guy from Buffalo. So he ordered us imported tomatoes in a can, rigatonis, ziti's, clam sauce, linguine. So we cooked all that stuff in hot pots. And we got packages. So we ate good in jail. And that's a scene that reflects that's true, without a doubt. Not on a scale like this, you know, with all the equipment and everything. Like we had hot pots, we had burners that were made in the maintenance. But you know, when they shook down the prisons, when they had annual shakedowns, we lost all that, and then we would have to get it back again. Like we would lose our hot plates, and because everything was wired, you know, everything was handmade. But it worked good, you know. It cooked. We made ceramic bowls and arts and crafts, and we would make a ceramic bowl and cook in it. I would make baked ziti on a radiator, like. And when I was in Attica, so Attica was a very old building, and certain blocks, the cells are old, and in the cell there's a radiator over the bed, actually on the wall. The radiator is on the wall. And you could only do this in the winter, of course, because the radiator the heat's off in the summer, right? So in the winter, so what I would do is I would get up, I would get the imported tomatoes in the commissary, and my wife would send me up a package with mozzarella cheese in it and stuff, and Parmesan cheese and mozzarella cheese, and I would get the package. And I had a Tupperware, so I would make the sauce, homemade sauce in a hot pot, delicious with the garlic and everything. I would make a nice pot of sauce. I would make a ziti in another hot pot. I had a hot pot rigged where I could make ziti pasta, and I would make another hot pot with ziti, and then I put it all in the Tupperware with the mozzarella and everything. And in the morning when I went to work, I would take the Tupperware and I would put it on top of the radiator. And I would leave and I would go to work and I'd come back like 5 or 6 hours later and I would take it off the radiator and I would open it up and I had steaming hot baked ziti. So it was good. So that scene brings up a lot of stuff, you know, memories, and, you know, that's how it was in there. That, you know, it's not like that today. It's not as loose as that anymore. When I was finishing up my sentence with the Bureau of Prisons in the 2000s, it was getting tighter because, you know, they were just taking a lot of stuff from the inmates. There was a different administration, but yeah, we used to make sauce on Sundays with sardines. Matter of fact, my father, when he got out of prison, my mother couldn't believe that he made sauce for Sunday gravy, you know, Sunday sauce with sardines, and he made it for them. And they loved it. He made sardine sauce for my mother and my sister and my brother. Frankie DeCicco. Well, I could say this one thing. Frankie DeCicco was a gangster. You know, he was a mob guy. I met Frankie DeCicco kind of pretty much in the early 70s when I started going around to the Ravenite, you know, when they all started getting straightened out, when the books got opened. I met Frankie. My father and John Gotti and a couple of guys had a dice game. Back in the early 80s, like 80, 81 on Mott Street. I worked in it and he would be there all the time. Frankie was very close to John and Angelo Quack. He was very close with them. And he was a tough guy. You know, he had 2 uncles. His whole family were criminals. His uncles, they were known stick-up guys. You know, they had a nickname, the 3 of them. I forgot what the Dalton brothers or something. They had some kind of nickname because they used to do a lot of scores together. And he was a tough guy. You know, he was a tough guy. He was with Jimmy Brown was the guy that proposed him, that straightened him out from Brooklyn. And later on, he became one of Paul Castellano's main guys. You know, when they were plotting the assassination of Paul Castellano, I mean, they couldn't have done it without him being involved. That's for sure, because he was one of the main players, from what I understand, from what was told to me. That, you know, he actually was the person that Paul Castellano was meeting that night for dinner. And Paul thought he was going to Sparks to meet Frankie for dinner, who was a captain at the time. Well, Paul had made Frankie DeCicco a captain. That's how well liked he was and what kind of tough guy he was, that Paul elevated him to captain. And Paul went there that night to meet him. And, Paul was assassinated. And then that led to, eventually that led to Frankie's assassination, because everybody knew, the other families knew Frankie set Paul up. And Frankie became John's first underboss. And, and the bottom line is, he was murdered, Frankie, because of his betrayal to Paul, and because, it wasn't sanctioned by the commission. It was an in-house thing. And, so Frankie was murdered, but he was a tough guy. Any interaction I had with him, we got along good. He always liked me. We always talked, I was around him a lot. I mean, I wasn't intimate friends with him. I never committed any crimes with him, but I was in his company many times, dinner, drinking, in the Ravenite, ran into him here and there. He was my father liked him. He was very close to my father. And he was a good guy, that was in the wrong place at the wrong time when that bomb went off. If he didn't get killed, the whole story of the Gambino family would have changed, because Sammy would have never been in that position.
All right, I'm going to open it up to your.
The bomb that blew Frankie DeCicco up, it was outside the Chins Club, wasn't it?
No, not the Chins Club. The Chins Club is in Manhattan. It was in Brooklyn.
Right.
Another club. It happened in Brooklyn. And, and that was a rule, there's a rule in the mob that you're not supposed to kill anybody with bombs, because there's collateral damage, because civilians could get hurt and killed, and kids. And so there's a thing in the mob that you're not supposed to use bombs, but, they did, it was probably that they did use a bomb, which they broke the rule because, at that point, they just wanted to get rid of John and Frankie DeCicco. And the Chin was the one that set that in motion, but it wasn't in front of his club. But he's the one that approved that. And I think it probably was, they must have brought people in from Europe, from Italy, because that's a European way of killing people using bombs. They don't do that anymore in the United States. The mob doesn't sanction killing people with bombs.
Long-time follower of yours. Do you have a story about Joe Piney?
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned Joe Piney's name. I knew Joe Piney well. I met him also when I was a kid. He was very, very good friends with my father. He was a captain in the Gambino family. He did about 15 years in prison for heroin. He was a captain in the Gambino family. He was actually John's second underboss. He became the underboss after Frankie DeCicco was murdered. But it was short-lived, because he then got indicted himself for a RICO, and then they stepped him down, and that's when Sammy became the underboss. But he was a tough guy. He had a very good crew with him. He straightened out a lot of guys. Matter of fact, one of his guys, Tommy A., was my father's co-defendant in Florida on my father's case that eventually my father went to prison for. And my father only got involved in that with Tommy A. because Joe Piney and Joe Gallo, who was the underboss of the Gambino family at the time, asked my father to do Joe Piney a favor and to service Tommy A. and his guys in Florida. And my father, of course, said yes. And eventually my father got indicted with all of them, with Tommy A. and Bobby DeSimone, who was Tommy DeSimone's older brother. So yeah, I had a relationship with Joe Piney.
Fantastic. Like, how many guys did he have underneath him directly?
That I know of, he had Jackie, he had Tommy A. He must have had about maybe 7 or 8 guys that he straightened out that I know of. And he had a club, he had a restaurant in Manhattan, in downtown Manhattan, where I used to go with my father. When my father had to go meet him, we used to go to his restaurant and eat dinner with him, and my father would, discuss whatever he needed to discuss with him. But he was an old timer, Joe Piney. He was an old timer.
Fantastic. Thank you.
I don't know them all, but there's a few of us. But you know, is everybody being honest? That's a different story, you know. I hope they are, but who knows? I think there's a question here. When Albert Anastasia made your dad, was it his responsibility to find work, or to find work? Did Albert direct your dad into different industries? The only industry Albert directed my father into is the murder industry. My father committed homicides for Albert Anastasia. My father made money because he had his own crew. He had a crap game. Actually, when my father first became a made member of the Mafia, he was actually a doorman on an illegal dice game, and he got paid $20 a night. That's how broke he was. You know, just because you got straightened out doesn't mean you got a paycheck every week. You know, you became a soldier. You had to go out and earn money. You know, your captain would help you earn money. But my father had a job in a crap game, and he was, you know, then he started. Then he opened up. He went from there. He started opening up horse rooms, and he was taking a lot. He had a lot of horse rooms, a lot of betting spots, number holes, and you know, he started progressing from there. So he started making money, but he didn't start making any real money until the '60s. When he put together like a crew with Nicky Carrazza, when he got these bunch of kids that were in East New York, and he put together like a really good crew, and then they started, you know, they started earning money. They started doing hijacking trucks, and you know, they had a big bookmaking business, a number business. You know, he started opening up some bars and restaurants, and you know, and it went on from there. But when he became a made member, he was kind of broke. When I was born in '53, he was broke. We lived when I was born, we lived with my grandmother. He couldn't even afford an apartment. And then our first apartment was on Livonia Avenue in East New York, where I was actually lived underneath the train L. The train L was out right outside my bedroom window when I was a little kid. Did you learn, Lee?
Did you lean on them or the other way around?
Sometimes it all depends, you know, it all depends. Yeah, definitely we leaned on them. You know, I took over a vending company, you know, I took it over from somebody that was with us that did something wrong. And when he did whatever he did, I took over the company. You know, we ran him out of the company, and I took over the vending company. Yeah, so yeah, definitely that happens. You know, listen, the mob, guys like us, whatever we touched, it was about making money. So when we took over legitimate businesses, just like in the movie Goodfellas, they banged out the Bamboo Lounge. You know, they took over the Bamboo Lounge, and everything was coming in the front door and going out the back door. Even in the Sopranos, they took over that sporting good company. If you remember the Sopranos, the neighbor was a degenerate gambler, and they took over his sporting business because he owed them more money. And, you know, and that's how it is, you know. Yeah, like a guy owed us money. A guy owed my brother money years ago. The guy owed my brother, I don't know, 14, 15,000, and the guy couldn't pay us. The guy had a boat. We took the boat, you know what I mean? And we, you know, so now we had a boat, you know what I mean? And we my brother took the boat, you know, I helped him, you know, so yeah, that's the mob, you know, that's what they do. That's what we did.
Now, does he still owe you, or the boat squares you up, or he's still paying?
Squared us away. The boat squared us away. You know, we took the boat. We took the boat for payment. Well, I didn't take the boat. It was my brother's money. So the boat was a really nice boat. You know, so we took the boat. It was docked by King's Plaza over there by the marina by King's Plaza, and so we took the boat, and we had the boat. We had the boat for a while. A couple of years we had the boat. Yeah. We had a lot of fun on that boat too. yeah. And then my brother got rid of the boat. Yeah, so that's how it works. You know, that's how it works. You know, people owe you money, or people. Listen, when people come to the mob for help, they know what they're getting themselves into, and if they don't, shame on them. You know, when you come to the devil, what's going to happen? Look at Paul Murray the wig. I mean, I knew Murray. Murray was a good. Murray loved my brother was. Murray loved my brother used to loan Murray the wig guy money. And, you know, and he got killed because, you know, he was asking Jimmy for money, you know, Jimmy Burke, you know, and they killed Murray, the wig guy in Goodfellas. That's the scene. They stuck the needle, the thing in his neck. You know, he used to come around my brother all the time. He used to be in the racetrack every day with us, Murray. You know, and his wig store was on Queens Boulevard. So, you know, when you do things with mobsters, you know, this is what happens.